And welcome to Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I am your host, Rich Dotson, here with my fellow nerd, Win Smith.
Rich, thanks for having me on.
Hey, good to have you on. Good to be filling in for Matt. Matt's on vacation, somewhere sunny, working on that tan.
Where is
trying
he?
to look good. I don't
know. Somewhere on the beach?
Somewhere, North Carolina, South Carolina. He's in a Carolina, I believe. So him and Cam Newton are kicking it. So
I saw you were getting some tan lines on last weekend.
Oh, yeah, man. I got outside by the pool. I had a beer. One beer turned into 12 beers, and that was the end of me. I was walking around all red, burnt up. I felt great. Felt great, though. It was a good weekend. It was the first week I got to relax in forever, so I enjoyed it.
Good for you.
So if I call you Matt a couple of times, that's my bad. But you are our first guest / guest host. You're the first guest host ever, but you're definitely one of the first guests. We normally don't do guests on the Dynasty Nerds show, so it's a good privilege for you to be on here as the first guest.
Yeah, it's quite an honor. I think I started writing for the site about a year ago, and I haven't written a whole lot, but what I have written hopefully has been pretty detailed, and people have enjoyed it. I am on Twitter. You can find me at WinTunnel, WINN Tunnel, and looking forward to gabbing with you about Dynasty this week. And thanks for having me on.
You got it, buddy. And today, and I think hopefully we have your article up today. Matt, Win just wrote. I just called you Matt. See, Win just wrote an article about the Cleveland Browns. In my opinion, the greatest team in NFL. But again, it's just my own opinion, and it's a really good article about the Browns as a whole and their dynasty value. So you can check that out on dynastynerds.com today. And you can also check out all Win's articles on dynastynerds.com. You just click on his name there, an article, and it'll show everything he's ever written. And Win puts out some good stuff, so make sure you check that out. And today we are going to talk about a couple players that Win likes that he feels are undervalued. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's players that are in that that ADP range of the kind of the lower 50s to I don't know down to the lower 80s, lower 90s range where you could pick them up real cheap. They're going to be able to help you out this year based on their opportunities and situations, and then they're really young, so you can kind of hold on to them and they can turn into nice dynasty assets that you can either flip or just kind of play for the next couple of years.
So you have four guys here. Do you think you will go 4 for 4 on these guys?
Oh man, it's hard to say. I feel real confident about 3 of them. The 4.
I like 2 out of 4.
You like 2 out of 4, huh?
2 out of 4. I think I'm gonna go 50-50. But that's just me.
Okay.
Personal opinion.
Well, can't wait to hear. Can't wait to hear which ones you're not feeling.
Well, so we're going to talk about 4 guys here that Win, again, feels that are good value, good buy lows, as we would call it. And then we'll talk about a little bit about the Dynasty Nerds Staff League. That finished up. We'll kind of dive into that just for a second. And if we have time, maybe we'll talk about a little Cleveland Browns. And you did so much research on them. I've been researching them my entire life, so I can answer all your questions.
Well,
but let's get into these wide receivers.
For you this year, man.
No, good luck to me. It's going to be rough. But let's get into this here. So one player that you told me that you liked is a player that I like as well. It's a player that I've liked for a year now, and a player that I've been preaching, I feel like for a while now, and that's Kamar Aiken for the Baltimore Ravens. 6'2", 215 pounds, finished as wide receiver 27 last year with 75 catches, 944 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And he was tendered by the Ravens with a second-round tender as well, which he signed a couple months ago. And now with that Brashad Perriman news coming in, where at first Adam Schefter told us it was a torn ACL, now it's not a torn ACL, now it's a partial tear, and he'll be back by training camp. I feel like Kamar Aiken's value went back up, and then it kind of came back down again now. So what are your thoughts on Kamar Aiken when saying, hey, this is a guy you need to go out and get?
Well, I mean, the main things I look for really when I'm looking at players that are going to have the opportunity to go up in value is first of all, what do their teams do? The Baltimore led the league last year in attempts, and I think it's no secret that Trestman likes to throw the ball. And you only had Flacco there for half the year, and they were 8th in yards per game last year. So you just know that the volume is going to be there, that they're going to be passing the ball. And the question now becomes, who are they going to be passing the ball to? And when you look at the team makeup, you talk about Brashard Perryman. Yeah, it looks like, the news is shifting that he may be able to get on the field this year, but he's going to miss all OTAs. He's going to miss most of mini camps. So how much realistically are you going to be able to project him to perform this year?
Yeah, and you have a guy also that he's already had 2 major knee injuries, and the guy hasn't even played a snap in the NFL yet. Those are kind of guys that I just like to stay far away from, man. I mean, you just feel like when you're that young and those knee injuries keep popping up, things usually don't get better along those terms.
Yeah, and you look at the kind of receiver he is. I mean, he's a speed guy. He's gonna catch a lot of his balls over the top, and I just think in an offense like this where you're gonna have so many attempts and you got a quarterback that's gonna complete a lot of them, you want the volume guy in the offense. Typically that'd be Steve Smith, but look, Steve Smith comes out the other day and he's not even sure when he's gonna get on the field. So you really it's really kind of last man standing with Aiken, and
whoa! What about Mike Wallace?
Oh man, Mike Wallace. I do like Mike Wallace, and I tell you what, I own Mike Wallace in a lot of dynasty leagues because I just kind of keep hanging on to him, and I love the move to Baltimore, I really do. But I'm talking volume. I'm talking underneath, dump off volume. I like Aiken. I mean, I just think that he's going to probably lead the team in targets and receptions, and he's already proved he can do it. Last 6 games. Last year, he averaged 10 targets for almost 6.5 catches a game for almost 80 yards a game. So the guys over there calling the plays like him, and they trust him. And they threw to him 10 times in the red zone last year. He completed 60% of those. So I just think the writing's on the wall that he's just going to be the backbone, kind of like that old Anquan Bolden role.
Yeah, I like that. I like that comparison. I feel like Kamar Aiken's one of those guys where everybody knows Kamar Aiken's going to do well this year, but they're just expecting him not to finish as the top 3 wide receiver. Even though last year he didn't come on till late last year. Well, he was kind of around all year, but he didn't really start stepping up, like you said, till later in the season. And he still finishes wide receiver 27. So that's a high-end wide receiver 3 you have right there. And I agree with you. I think he's going to take a bigger step this year in the offense again for another year with Joe Flacco, and be that number 1 option for Baltimore, because there's too many questions. I mean, Mike Wallace, he's not a volume receiver. He's a run deep, catch the ball, and hope for the best kind of guy. And like you said, the Ravens throw the ball a ton. So somebody's going to have to catch those balls. And I agree with you 100%. It's the reason I liked Kamar Aiken last year. I like him even more going into this year.
Yeah, and I think at wide receiver 59 ADP, he's the 59th wide receiver off the board right now, and Dynasty Nerds ADP. I mean, to me, that's just screaming. I guess people just don't either trust him or they don't like his name, or they, I think you gotta draft that guy because it reminds me a lot of the Hearns situation last year, where he's just kind of fallen by the wayside, but the volume is going to be there for him. So. That's who I like on that team.
And look at Hearns, who just signed that 4-year extension there in Jacksonville. Finishes wide receiver 18 last year. So wow. he was a middle of the range wide receiver 2 there, very high commodity. Again, Jacksonville saw this. They signed him to long term. If you've been listening to the Dynasty Nerds podcast, you most likely for years now since Hearns got drafted, you most likely have him on your team because we've been preaching Allen Hearns since he's been drafted. At Dynasty Nerd, Mike preached him pretty hard. We liked him ahead of Marquise Lee. So that was a great buy. And I like the comparison even there. Kamar Aiken bouncing around a little bit from Buffalo, New England, finally lands in Baltimore last year. Has that good year. Good things are to come. Again, you have 2 guys that are coming off major injuries, and you have Mike Wallace. If I'm taking one guy there, I'm taking Kamar Aiken every single time. And worst case scenario here, maybe he still finishes as wide receiver 29. You still have a wide receiver 3 in your hands. It's an every week starter.
Absolutely, and that's what I like to have on the back end of my dynasty rosters is, we're not trying to say Aiken's going to go out there and, be a wide receiver 1, but you got to have those guys in the last few spots on your roster that you can just plug in weekly, that are going to get 8 to 10 targets a game, and they're just going to get you through the bye weeks. Those guys are so valuable in my opinion.
Yeah, and those are the people that you see people that own dynasty teams. I'm like, oh, you can't compete. You got Kamar Aiken in your lineup. You know what I mean? He's your starter. How are you going to win the championship? Dude, he was wide receiver 27 last year. He's a high-end wide receiver 3. Unless you have 2 wide receiver 1s and wide receiver 2 on your roster, then good luck beating me with Kamar.
Absolutely.
Yeah, again, sometimes people look for that name value, and I'll take production. You know what I mean? Again, the best ability is reliability, and last year Kamar Aiken showed he was reliable. Was it 1 year? Yes. Is he a for sure thing? No. But you and I both agree we're buying on Kamar Aiken.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on to another wide receiver here. Now, Kamar Aiken finished as wide receiver 27. The next guy we're going to talk about finished as wide receiver 108. It's pretty low.
Yeah.
It's really – I think he finished behind Percy Harvin.
Yeah.
That's pretty low. We're talking J.J. Nelson for the Arizona Cardinals, Mr. 5'10", 160 pounds. J.J. Nelson. Tell me why you like J.J. Nelson going this year, and sell me on J.J. Nelson, because I'm not buying the J.J. Nelson. I like J.J. Nelson, but as far as like somebody I want to go out and get, I'm not on that train yet. So try and get me a ticket to that train. Okay.
Here's the thing about J.J. Nelson. Yeah, he only caught 11 catches last year, okay? And I agree that's very small. But, at 27.2 yards per reception, you just know that he's got the speed and the ability to make big plays. He also has the return ability, which I always like to have because I play in some return yardage leagues, so that's a bonus. But I think the thing I love about him is if you project out in the future for the Arizona Cardinals, Fitzgerald's talking, he's getting old, okay? And he's talking about, you're hearing rumblings of retiring. I don't think it's going to happen this year. I don't think it's going to happen next year, but it's going to happen pretty soon. Then you also have Michael Floyd, who's a free agent next year. So you have to sometimes position yourself with your dynasty team a couple of years out or a year out and look at these guys that are going to come up for free agency and clear spots on rosters for wide receiver pass heavy teams like the Cardinals. And I just, Arians comes out today on Yahoo talking about comparing J.J. Nelson to Emmanuel Sanders. I think he's bulked up over this offseason. He's up to 170 pounds. All the arrows are pointing up for him to either acquire more playing time here in the next year or two. He's so cheap. He's wide receiver 87 in the ADP. I mean, that's so cheap. You just throw him on there. Worst case scenario, he doesn't really see the field that much, or I think he'll catch more catches than 11 this coming year. But I just think that it's more of a projection that in the next couple of years, he's going to be a viable asset on that team, and you may as well own him now because he doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you get somebody that you like for free, we all have those players that, hey, down the road, I think this guy's going to be good in 2 to 3 years. And you get him for pretty much nothing right now. And that guy right now for you then is J.J. Nelson. I'm just concerned, everything that you described with the speed, size, they already have that in John Brown. And they're going to have to look for, after Michael Floyd leaves in free agency, unless Michael Floyd comes out and beasts this year and they end up franchising him or tendering him along those lines, they're still going to need another big receiver for that Bruce Arians offense. And they're going to have to either draft that guy or sign that guy via free agency. And, again, the only thing that really concerns me about J.J. Nelson is John Brown, because I think John Brown is a much better receiver than J.J. Nelson. So how many small receivers are you really going to throw out there in the NFL today? That's a big thing for me.
Yeah, you're right. I guess from a cost standpoint, I guess J.J. Nelson is just more appealing just because he's so cheap. But I do agree with you. I mean, John Brown, Michael Floyd, Fitzgerald, those are the guys you want to own in the Cardinal offense. And who knows what will happen with Michael Floyd. I don't remember the last time the Cardinals paid up for a wide receiver, a big contract. It probably was Fitzgerald.
Fitzgerald, yeah.
I don't know if they have a long history of doing something like that. I kind of see him letting Floyd walk. But you're right. Who takes the big wide receiver role there when they do? So, you know, it may be a shot in the dark for Nelson, but I do like him. I like owning the fastest guy in the league. I tell you that much.
Well, I mean, you like him, so that's enough for me. And again, it's not like you're giving up anybody to get him. You know what I mean? You could probably get him for, you know, a late third, maybe a fourth round pick in a rookie draft. Say there's somebody out there, hey, I really want Connor Cook or I want Cardale Jones in this rookie draft. Like, give me J.J. Nelson. Okay, here we go. You know, you're getting him for almost free with that ADP. Again, he was wide receiver 108 last year. That's non-existent.
Yeah, you're probably going to find him on a lot of waiver wires too. And
even better, free.
Yeah,
he cost a click. He's a click. So, all right, so that's J.J. Nelson. Let's move on to the next guy here. Kind of surprised to even see that we're going to talk about Marcus Wheaton. That Marcus Wheaton even finished as wide receiver 45 last year in PPR leagues, which, you know, it's a wide receiver 4 he finished, but still, I mean, for a guy that I would have thought that Marcus Wheaton had a wide receiver 4 kind of a year last year.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Wheaton is when I think about the Steelers, I believe they're going to return to 2014 form. You know, and in that year, they Roethlisberger threw 608 times for 408 completion. So let's say he has that kind of year this year, and Antonio Brown gets 120 catches, and you got Bell, you know, probably catching 60 out of the backfield. That leaves about 228 catches up in the air. And the last time they had that kind of volume, they had Heath Miller, who's gone, Martavis Bryant, who's not playing this year. So, you know, really, to me, it's a question of who's going to catch the ball. You know, you talk about J.J. Nelson only having 11 catches. Well, Sammy Coates only had 1 catch last year. And, you know, so if you just project out, maybe let's just be conservative with 80 or 90 catches for Wheaton, which is more than he's ever had. But there's 228 up for grabs. You know, at his 14 yards per catch average, that's an 1,100-yard season right there. And that puts him at you throw in about 5 or 6 touchdowns, which is his average. That puts him at wide receiver 15 in PPR scoring.
Yeah, I mean, he came on real strong those last 6 games last year. You know, he had 476 yards. He had four touchdowns, 28 catches, and that was over just the last 6 games. So yeah, if you extrapolate that to a full season, I mean that's a huge year for Marcus Wheaton. And they bring in Ladarius Green. Ladarius Green's going to catch more balls than Heath Miller caught.
Yeah.
He's a big target. So, and you have sophomore Sammy Coates there, who's bigger than Marcus Wheaton. He's 6'1", 212, and he's an athletic freak as well. So I'd like to see where he comes into effect as well. I liked what I saw out of Wheaton at the end of the year. I haven't liked anything before that I saw out of Wheaton, so I'm more intrigued. Can Wheaton really cement his spot here in Martavis Bryant's absence, or will Sammy Coates kind of overtake him? I agree with you. I'm betting on Marcus Wheaton here. But at the same time, I'm not like overly confident that he's going to come out here and succeed. But he's just surrounded with so much talent. It's almost kind of like hard not to believe that he won't succeed.
Yeah, I just don't. I think you just got to put your eggs in Wheaton's basket. I just don't see Coates stepping up quite the way we want him to. Maybe next year. The thing you got to remember about Wheaton is he's only 25 years old, and he's an unrestricted free agent next year. So, and I like to compare Wheaton to Sanders. They're both very similar in build. They're both very similar in speed.
Good comp.
They're both actually, if you look at playerprofile.com, Wheaton is slightly more agile. And actually, Wheaton in his age 23 and 24 season has actually outperformed what Sanders did in the same offense in yards per target. And I just think that worst case scenario, Wheaton gets shipped off somewhere else and gets a little bit of a promotion, you may see that same kind of jump that you saw when Sanders went to the Broncos, and where he gets a little bit more volume, he gets a little bit more targets, and he's cheap. And I just think he's a good bet to maybe help you out this year, and then you just hold on and see what happens in the future.
And then maybe Marcus Wheaton ends up in Arizona, and he's catching balls in Bruce Arians' offense.
Boom! That's a hot take right there, Rich.
That's a possibility there too. I like everything you just said there. I like everything you just said there. Is Marcus Wheaton? You're almost doing the same thing we talked about with buying into what somebody's going to do in the future, but like one step ahead of that with Wheaton, where you can buy what he's doing into now, and then also the future, because there's a good chance, even if he has a really good year, of Pittsburgh not re-sign him. Not with Martavis Bryant coming back. Not if they like Sammy Coates, and then you already have Antonio Brown there, and you just signed Ladarius Green. How much money is left in that offense to re-sign somebody like Marcus Wheaton if he has a really good year?
Yeah, and if he does have a really good year, somebody's going to want him. And I think it's always so important, and you probably agree, just to look out for those future, those 2017 free agents. I mean, kind of gobble some of those up. Guys like Giovanni Bernard. Actually, he just got signed, didn't he?
He signed a 3-year extension. I'm always somewhat cautious about the free agent guys, just because a lot of that doesn't translate when people leave teams. You don't see a lot of free agents move on to other teams and have a lot of success. New schemes, new coaching, new quarterbacks. A lot of that really doesn't translate. I mean, you have to be a really, really good player for that to translate. Like a Brandon Marshall, who just dominates everywhere he goes. But you see so many times, almost we were talking about Mike Wallace earlier. He had that one good year in Pittsburgh, a year and a half in Pittsburgh. Then he goes somewhere else and he's just a turd. And sometimes it's not just scheme. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's just, hey, I got paid. Whatever. I'm good. So
I'm going to go get balls from Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, there you go.
And
so
you just know.
But I understand. I just feel like what's the price on Marcus Wheaton right now? What's it? What's it going to take to get Marcus Wheaton? Because everybody's like, hey, Martavis Bryant's out. Wheaton's going to have a good year. Do you have to somewhat overpay it? But at the same time, I've said this before as well. Like, hey, sometimes you feel like you're overpaying, but when you look back on it 12 months from now, you got a hell of a deal. And that could be Marcus Wheaton this year. Again, he finished as wide receiver 45 last year with Martavis Bryant. He's going to most likely start this year. Todd Haley wants to have the most prolific offense in the NFL. They want to go for 2 pretty much every single down. Le'Veon Bell's coming back as well. There is no reason to believe if he stays healthy that Marcus Wheaton, at the very, very worst, won't finish as a high-end wide receiver 3.
I agree.
So it just depends on what do you want to pay for that, and will that carry on into future years. I love the fact that he's 25, but if he has a good year, he's going to sign somewhere else as well. And where does he sign? I guess that's a big thing. Of course, we can't predict that, but Arizona obviously would be a dream come true. His ADP would skyrocket again there.
Absolutely.
So he's a buy low. I think he's a good buy low right now. What did you say his ADP was on Dynasty Nerds? Do you remember?
57. Wide receiver 57 off the board. And I don't know where he ranks in relationship to Sammy Coates. I wonder if Sammy Coates is going ahead of him right now.
Oh,
but I wouldn't doubt it. As youth-centric as most Dynasty owners are, I wouldn't doubt that Sammy Coates is being drafted ahead of him. Look that up. But, even if – and the thing I love about – sometimes you got to take a little bit of a chance to keep yourself in position, this coming year. And a guy like Wheaton, if they get back to 2014 when everyone was healthy, I mean, they led the league in passing yards per game. They were 5th in attempts per game with almost 40 per game. So I just once again, projecting volume alone, somebody's got to catch him, and I just don't see Sammy Coates making that big of a leap.
Yeah, and you're talking like a high-end wide receiver 2 ceiling here out of Marcus Wheaton. And so even if you slightly overpay, but you're a contender and you need that wide receiver 3, why not just take somebody that's like, all right, this guy could probably be a pretty decent wide receiver 3. When for the same price, you get somebody like Marcus Wheaton that could be a high-end wide receiver 2, where somebody else where you might be paying the same value will certainly just be, hey, a wide receiver 3, or maybe possibly worse, where Marcus Wheaton, again, is probably a pretty safe buy at this point.
Yeah. And Coates, I just checked. Coates is going ahead of Wheaton right now.
Oh, he is?
In spots, yeah.
Wow.
So
That's funny too.
I mean, shoot, you could get both of them if you're in a startup. You could grab both of them right there in the in that 117, 28 range.
Trade for the whole Pittsburgh offense. I put a poll out there on Twitter. I think it was yesterday. I thought about. I know I can't do it now because there's those rumors out there that Le'Veon Bell might have failed a drug test or not showed up and might be suspended, even though we denied it. I own Le'Veon Bell in the Dynasty Nerds League, the official Dynasty Nerds League, not the staff league. And I really thought about trading Le'Veon, like making an offer of Le'Veon Bell for the number 1 pick in Ezekiel Elliott.
Really?
And I put the poll out there on Twitter, and there's 400 people that voted, and it was literally it was like 52-48, but for a while there it was 50-50.
Oh, really?
Where do you lean on that?
You know, I actually own Bell in a dynasty league too. It's it's another industry league, and I'm not really too worried about selling that guy. I'm a little bit. I still don't know what the least I would take for him. I mean, what's the least you would take for Bell? I mean, take Elliott out of the picture. Let's just talk about maybe a pick and a player. What's the least you would take for Bell?
The least I would take for Bell would be it'd have to be a top 6, 17 first to grab one of those running backs, and I would need either 2 pretty good players or another really good player.
Yeah.
Or I would do any of the top receivers straight up. But again, that's easy to say. It all depends on the dynamic of your team, because obviously a lot of people just can't give up Le'Veon Bell for. Even if it's somebody like Antonio Brown, you just can't give up Le'Veon Bell for Antonio Brown straight up if you don't have any running backs to back him up, because it's counterintuitive. You can't compete then because you have no running backs, even though you have Antonio Brown. So sometimes it's easier to say that than just go out and do it. So for me, I'd have to get a 17 top 6 pick to gamble on one of those running backs, and I'd have to get another good player on the back end.
Yeah. And I agree. I would probably try to at least try to get a wide receiver that I could start every week. You know, something like I honestly would really try to do like a T.Y. Hilton in a 2017 first. If I could get that for Bell and have T.Y. for the next 3 or 4 years, and then grab one of those nice running backs in 2017, maybe add on a little bit of sugar there. But
so there's no way I would do that. There's no way. No, not T.Y. I'm not a big T.Y. guy. I'd have to have somebody that's for sure. You know what I mean? I need somebody like T.Y. for me is not a for sure thing. Now with Dante Moncrief coming back in there, Keenan Allen, yeah, for sure. To me, he's a for sure thing. I'd take Keenan Allen in a 17 top 6 pick first for Le'Veon Bell. I'd do that.
Yeah, I think that's
I'd take AJ Green and a top, I'd probably move down in the 17 draft for AJ Green, actually. But then again, I love AJ Green, and most people don't. But I think Keenan Allen's a better bet. But for me, the way I look at it is, I talked about this many times on the podcast, and I know Jacob Bittner just put that fantastic article on the website. Again, he supported our cause of hashtag 2 to 3 year window, and how many running backs actually have more than one running back 1 year. So again, if you have not read that article on DynastyNerds.com, it's called the Dynasty Code, the running back code. Make sure you check it out. It's by Jacob Bittner. But again, with Le'Veon Bell not finishing the year every single year, and people's argument like, oh, well, Ezekiel Elliott, he hasn't done anything yet. Well, at the same time, he's only 20 years old, and he's going to the top running offense in the NFL. So I'd almost be willing I'm such a believer in Zeke that I'm almost willing to gamble on it and just take him straight up.
Yeah.
Again, that's just me.
with the McFadden news today about him probably not going to be full bore for the beginning of the season, you got to think they're going to probably hand a little bit more of the keys to Elliott at the beginning. So you're going to get probably a really good running back, even in redraft next year, in Elliott.
Yeah, I think that Run DMC broken elbow news.
What do you think he's doing?
I think he's. I don't know, man. A little too much alone time in the hotel room at night with the pay-per-view. I don't know, but that helps Alfred Morris. If you own Alfred Morris, that's going to help you a little bit. There's a good chance. I mean, DMC might not make the roster. Yeah, he can catch the ball. Yeah, he ran for over 1,000 yards last year. But at the same time, you just signed Alfred Morris. You have Lance Dunbar back there if you need somebody to catch the balls as well. And Ezekiel catches the ball just fine. So, to me, there's really no need for Darren McFadden. I mean, in my belief, that's what I don't think. I mean, I'm okay with Alfred Morris and Dunbar if Zeke goes down.
Do you think that the Cowboys are going to trust Elliott year one in the red zone, or you think you're going to hand that off to Morris?
Yeah, I think you trust him. He's shown known signs in college that he can't handle the ball. He does every single thing well. Worst case scenario, if you don't trust him early in the red zone, you have Alfred Morris there, like you just stated, at the same time. But again, you don't take a running back number 4 overall if you don't believe that he's a game changer. You think the Vikings were worried about Adrian Peterson as a rookie in the red zone? No, you're going to want to give him the ball in the red zone because that's what you drafted him for. You drafted him to score touchdowns. That's what Ezekiel does. He scores touchdowns. So yeah. I don't think it's a huge concern again. But then I'm a Zeke truther, man. I'm the one that argues that he's the number 1 overall dynasty running back before taking the snap in NFL. So that's just me. I think he's the number 1 over dynasty running back. I really do.
I argue against that
in a PPR league. So that's just me. But we totally got off track. Let's get back on here. We have one more player that you want to talk about, and this so happens to be a running back.
Yeah.
Detroit Lions, Theo Riddick, running back 18 last year, led the NFL in catches with 80 for all running backs. And he's only 25 years old. And they just cut Joyce Bell. Wayne State pride.
I don't get it, Rich. I mean, this guy's got a 10th round ADP dynasty startup, and he finishes the what did he finish as? The RB 18 last year in PPR. I mean, in the last 6 years, Detroit hasn't finished out of the top. They finished out of the top 5 in pass attempts 1 year in the last 6 years, and they've led the league in pass attempts 3 of those years. I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen is they're going to run more. Well, Riddick's a running back. I don't understand the consistently undervalued Riddick.
Well, the problem with Riddick, I think, where people fall in line is, I mean, the guy only had 43 rushes last year, so he's not. He's more of a pass-catching PPR running back, which is terrific. He still finished as a running back 2 last year. But it's also how much do you believe in Amir Abdullah? Because most likely Amir Abdullah is going to be that lead back taking over those carries for Joyce Bell, while Theo Riddick maintains his own role as that pass-catching running back. But at the same time, where you said you don't get it, it makes sense because even if Theo Riddick maintains the same role at the age of 25, he still caught the most footballs out of any other running back in the NFL last year with 80.
Agreed. And so I just don't, even if he catches maybe 15, 20 less balls, because Abdullah can catch the ball too. I mean,
yes.
They're kind of the same player, although Abdullah is a lot better runner of the football. And I don't really
think Theo Riddick's got a bigger head.
Yeah. Yeah, but I like the Detroit offense. I think they're still going to pass the ball a lot. I think you gotta own that guy, and you throw him on the end of your roster, and you just play him in the bye weeks or throw him out as a PPR. Heck, he was just an RB2 last year. So
yeah, you start him. You don't have to worry about him being bye. You could start Theo Riddick. I won leagues last year with Theo Riddick as my number 2 running back, who I picked off the waiver wires. So, yeah, I think you could start. Again, he falls by the wayside of just like, oh, it's Theo Riddick. It's just a name. Kind kind of like how we were talking about Kamar Aiken, right? Where
Yeah.
how are you gonna win? How are you gonna win your league, man? You got Theo Riddick as your running back 2. You got Kamar Aiken as your wide receiver 3. Dude, how are you gonna win your league? But meanwhile, you're like, all right, dude, I go by numbers. I have a running back 2 and a wide receiver 3 on my roster. What do you got? So I agree with Calvin Johnson retiring. Golden Tate didn't really strive that much last year. Golden Tate was, I think the Golden Tate hype is a little bit, too much out there for me. I'm not a complete buyer on the Golden Tate.
Really?
I like him, but I don't think he's a wide receiver 1. I don't think Marvin Jones is really a wide receiver 1. So I don't, and with Matt Stafford, who can be really inconsistent ones as well, I don't even know how much you can really trust that Detroit passing game. I mean, my favorite guy in the NFL, Jim Bob Cooter himself, he's shown that he was a tremendous offensive coordinator. I mean, I thought he did really well last year with what he had. And again, I expect this running game to kind of help out these new receivers to get this game going. And again, Theo Riddick, Matt Stafford could dump it off 80 times to him last year, there's no reason to believe that he can't catch, like you said, oh, no, he catches 10 balls less. He catches 70 footballs, 65 footballs.
Yeah.
But I don't think so. I agree with you. I like Theo Riddick too. I think he can catch 80 footballs, again, back-to-back years. And if he can increase those rushes a little bit, a la Amir Abdullah goes down, or Joique Bell, with Joique Bell being gone. So if he had 43 rushes last year, if he can just increase that a little bit and get a little bit more rushing yards, he might get a little bit jump on that running back 18 and get it all up to like running back 15 possibly, which is a very high-end running back 2, which is a really good commodity.
Yeah, and you got to ask yourself too. I mean, what are the Lions going to do in the red zone? They lose Calvin Johnson, which is a huge red zone presence. I mean, those red zone trips are going to go somewhere. And so, I think the arrow is pointing up still for Riddick, even though it may seem like he's kind of at his wit's end. He's still 25. I think you got to go get him, especially if he's going behind guys like Tevin Coleman in a startup and, Matt Forte. And I just think you're going to have a lot better luck grabbing a guy like Riddick.
Yeah, age isn't his benefactor there. I think in the red zone, I think we got to expect a big jump this year from Eric Ebron if he can hold on to the football there in Detroit. I'm a big fan of Ebron. Not many tight ends go in the top 10 of the NFL draft that aren't really successful. So I think Ebron dealt with the drops, but he has a size. I mean, if all the pass catchers on Detroit, I guess I would still draft Golden Tate number 1, but I wouldn't draft Golden Tate where his ADP is. He's just one of those guys I wouldn't completely trust for where he would go. I feel like his value is not really there. I would love to kind of put some of my eggs in a basket in that passing game of Eric Ebron.
Yeah, interesting enough, you had 20 red zone targets last year, Calvin Johnson. Those are all going to be distributed among Tate, Jones, Riddick, Ebron. Riddick actually was 3rd on the team last year in red zone targets with 14, right behind Golden Tate with 17. So I think there's just going to be some more opportunity for scoring there. I like what you're saying about Ebron.
So those are the guys that win likes. Those are the 4 guys that win likes. I'm okay. I said originally 2 out of 4. I'm okay with 2 3/4 out of 4, and that's I like Marcus Wheaton. You're right. There's no reason not to like him. I like the whole fact that he's a free agent. He is young.
Yeah, you didn't know he was that young. You forget he's that young. You feel like he's been around the league a long time, but he's only 25, and that's
you sold me on. But that's why you listen to the podcast, so your opinion can change and you get some more information and you find out some things to kind of sway you one way or another. I remember, last year when I told everybody in my Sell High episode, I said, sell Eddie Lacy. People were telling me I was crazy. Now people write me like, oh, your Eddie Lacy and Jordy Nelson Sell High take was fantastic. In my Buy Low episode last year, I did a Buy Low episode. I said, you need to go out there and buy Danny Woodhead. He's going to finish as, most likely a low-end running back 1. He finished as running back 3 last year. So, yeah, I mean, that's why you listen. You want to make sure you find these guys, definitely guys like this. Not, don't go out there and buy, Rob Gronkowski. You got to find guys that you can get that are affordable.
Yeah.
These are the guys that are going to win you a championship because you can't afford to get these other guys without giving up other commodities to taking a loss. And every guy that we just named, you can get for – these are guys that will help. Besides J.J. Nelson, the other 3 guys will help you win a championship in 2016, this year. The ultimate goal is to win. So these 3 of those 4 guys will help you win now. And you're talking about guys that can help you win now, and you don't even really have to give up much to get them.
Yeah. A lot of times you can tack them on to, the back end of trades is just, things that will just get the deal done. And I really like all 4 of them. Glad you like 2.35% of them or whatever.
Yeah, it's close enough, right? I mean, you're good there. So let's talk about – so those are the guys who go out there and get them. Go out there. Get them. If you're a player away, these are the guys that will help you win this year. Like I said earlier in the show, we just finished our Dynasty Nerds staff writing league. Tim Torch got it going. You can follow him at Tim NFL, and he's like, hey, let's get a Nerds. You have the Dynasty Nerds league that's been going on for almost 15 years, but let's get a staff league with all the writers in it. You wanted to get in and win, but you just missed a cut.
It was too late. But I think I'm going to be okay. I've got so many dang leagues. But I tell you what, it's been fun watching the draft. I mean, it's great when you get to watch these experienced dynasty players go at it against each other. And Rich, man, I really love what you're doing with your team here. I'd like for you to pick up where we left off a couple of weeks ago.
I don't remember where I left off, but we can go run down on my team. I love.
You just took Peterson and Martin back to back there. And,
okay. So it's like around the later in the draft there. So the league ended. I moved up. I moved down. I made a lot of trades in this draft. This is honestly probably out of all the dynasty leagues I've ever drafted, my favorite team that I've ever drafted.
Nice.
For a startup. I love it. Again, everybody comes away after a startup draft loving their team. It's simple to do. It really is. I look at this draft and some of these guys, I'm like, hey man, come on. Let's get together over here. I don't like your team at all. You can't write for the site anymore. But no, because even though I think that, and you'll have guys in your league that'll think that, like, hey, this guy he drafted terrible. You and your buddy are behind his back laughing at him, and then 6 months later he wins the league. You're like, what the hell happened there? So it's easy that I love my team now. I think I'm going to win the whole damn thing. 6 months from now, I can be like, oh, well, I did this, and this, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
But so my team ended up. Here's my team. We'll go through it quickly. It's a large roster here. At quarterback, I got Sam Bradford, Drew Brees, Cardale Jones, and Andrew Luck. So I moved. I used Andrew Luck. I got Andrew Luck in a trade, so I took him in like the 4th round. I was just in position to do that. So I got my young quarterback, and then I got Drew Brees to back him up. Who doesn't love Drew Brees? I'll probably start Drew Brees over Andrew Luck to start the season. And then I got Sam Bradford as just, hey, he's a guy, no worries about it. And then I took Cardale Jones with one of my last picks there. What do you think of my quarterbacks?
I tell you what, tell me what you like about Cardale Jones and his situation. I mean, are you a Tyrod fan?
I thought Tyrod played well. I mean, obviously he made the Pro Bowl last year, but it doesn't seem like the Bills are all in on Tyrod Taylor. And even if they are, if Tyrod Taylor signed there long term, you got Sammy Watkins, who I love, but that's about it. That their offense isn't. It's not a really passing offense that you can really fall in love with right now. He's got mobility, but the big thing is the Bills aren't all in on Tyrod Taylor, so there's no reason I should be all in on Tyrod Taylor. And with Cardale Jones, he's just somebody I feel like he has a chance to be a really good quarterback. He's big, he's strong. So, and being in Buffalo with the cold weather, you need to be a big, strong quarterback to succeed in places like that. I know. I live in Cleveland, right on the other side of the pond of Lake Erie. So, for me, Cardale Jones, get him that late, there's no risk involved. Get him in the 30th round, 29th round.
I feel like Cardale Jones, the Bills want Cardale Jones to be what E.J. Manuel couldn't be. I mean, he's a real similar type player. He's a real huge guy. and he has the ability to run. I think that's a really nice little player to have on the end of your roster. I like your QBs. I love the Breeze Luck combo. I mean, those guys could finish 1-2 the next 2 or 3 years and in total fantasy points. And even if you don't hang on to both of them, the ability to trade one of them really can take your roster to the next level. Like that week 10 when you're getting ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, it's just one of the things. I've always loved Drew Brees. I've loved him come out of Purdue. I drafted him his rookie year in the initial startup league of the Dynasty Nerds startup league. I drafted him his rookie year. I was a big believer in him, preaching his name that long ago.
God.
And they're like, oh, yeah, you're just a big Chargers fan. I'm like, okay, whatever. So, yeah, I love my quarterbacks too. But, again, I love my whole team. So then for my running backs, one thing I learned here in the startup draft, I don't think I did a startup draft last year too, is, everybody wants to build around young receivers.
Yeah.
It's a dynasty theory to go around. I preach building around young receivers. But sometimes a good running back is still staring you in the face and just like, you got to take them.
Absolutely.
I could trade him in season. I could trade him I could start, and this is kind of like a hyperflex league where you only start one running back, 2 wide receivers, and 3 flex spots and 1 tight end. So I could start 4 running backs in this league if I choose to do it. But my running backs are C.J. Anderson, Duke Johnson, Daniel Lasco, Doug Martin, DeMarco Murray, Paul Perkins, Adrian Peterson, and Spencer Ware.
Love that.
What's not to love about that?
I just love that. I mean, I love owning running backs with 2 touchdown upside every week. Guys like Anderson, guys like Peterson, guys like Martin. You got your pass catching back and Johnson. I love that you picked up Lasco real late. I think the jury's still out on Perkins, and I like the fact that you owned Ware. I'm not sure that Charles is going to be around after this.
Just signed that extension as well.
Yeah, and really, if you go back and look at the statistics and who they handed the ball off to in the red zone, it was Ware.
Yeah.
And so I really like your running backs. I think it's nice and got a lot of depth, and I think people need to watch out for DeMarco Murray. I mean, I just like the fact that you've got so much volume coming from your running backs, and that's the kind of thing you want in your flex spots.
Yeah, and I got DeMarco Murray in like the 8th, 9th round. It was somewhere late. Like DeMarco Murray slipped really far. And every time I was like, oh, I need a receiver. I'm not going to take DeMarco here. And it finally got to the point I was like, dude, I'm taking DeMarco Murray. This is just ridiculous. I traded up for C.J. Anderson. I got him somewhere in like the 8th round. Maybe I took DeMarco Murray even later than I don't have the draft in front of me. I'm just looking at my roster. But I know I traded up for C.J. Anderson, who I believe I took somewhere around the 8th round there as well, because I couldn't believe he was still on the board.
Yeah, that was amazing to me.
Again, so what I thought was like a lot of these running backs just kind of slipped, and I was like, they kind of fell into my lap. And with Spencer Ware, we talked about Spencer Ware last year, was out of Spencer Ware and Charkandrick West, Spencer Ware was the better running back, in my opinion. I mean, West can catch the ball a little bit better, but I feel like Ware runs the ball better. He's going to get the red zone carries like you said before. So if I'm going to take a guy who's a backup, or I'm going to take a guy who's at least going to get some red zone opportunity, that was Spencer Ware. And again, I got him super late.
Absolutely. And Andy Reid, just year after year, he hands the ball off, and that's what you're looking for, just as a guy just to put on the end of your roster in case something happens. It's a great pick.
All right, so now onto my receivers. Now my receiving core, now you only start 2. So that's why I was okay with kind of getting away from the receivers a little bit. I took my 2 receivers early. I traded up for DeAndre Hopkins, like I said. I took Jarvis Landry. And then my other receivers are Michael Crabtree, Larry Fitzgerald, Rashard Higgins, Vincent Jackson, Terrell Pryor, Mohamed Sanu, and Moritz Boringer.
Mohamed Sanu.
Took him really late, got him. To me, it was worth it. Am I a huge Sanu fan? No, but I'll gamble on him in Kyle Shanahan's offense.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk lately about the fact that Kyle Shanahan ignores that wide receiver too, but I think he's going to see some volume this year. I don't know how ready old Hardy is to really to step up to the plate.
And
And
Hardy's still a wide receiver. He's a wide receiver 3.
yeah,
Regard. He's that slot guy. He's a wide receiver 3 who, if he could play that really well, will have fantasy production. But we never drafted Justin Hardy thinking this guy was going to be a stud. I like Justin Hardy. He has really good heart, was a walk-on, but at the same time, Sanu's that bigger body receiver that might catch some of that offset Julio stuff there.
absolutely. Now, did you draft those Cleveland wide receivers because you just love Cleveland, or you love those two particular guys?
Honestly, I drafted those guys both like picks like 27, 20. Terrell Pryor, I believe, was my very last pick, like pick 30. So I got Terrell Pryor. Just when 12 teams, one of the last picks in the whole draft, in the 30th round, Terrell Pryor is just somebody. Guys there. Those are guys. Those are your first cuts. So if Terrell Pryor makes a team, he's a big receiver. If he makes the team there, then he makes the team. I don't ever plan on ever drafting him. Rashard Higgins now, I expect, even our local beat reporter here, Tony Grossi, he just put out the other day his prediction for the starting lineup opening season.
Okay.
He had Corey Coleman and Rashard Higgins in his prediction
Really?
of who's going to start out there for the Cleveland Browns. And Higgins is just one of those guys that runs such good routes. The Browns cut all their old receivers. They're going youth here. And when you're going to look at talent for a guy that can run routes, catch the ball, and is just an overall pretty good receiver, I mean, Rashard Higgins does that. He could be a guy that catches X amount of balls, and he has a ceiling of being a high-end wide receiver 3. So, again, for a guy that can get in the 27th round, 25th round, I'm going to gamble on it. So a lot of people will be like, oh, you have a lot of Cleveland players. Well, Cleveland just made a huge youth movement. If I'm drafting late in the late 20s of my 30-man roster, I'm drafting youth. So these guys have the best option of playing immediately or playing the soonest. So that's why I went to Cleveland, the Cleveland route. Not as much as just because I'm a homer. It's just because they have the quick. I'm sure it has something to play into it, but they have the closest to producing. And these are guys that are in the back end of my roster. I mean, I have Larry Fitzgerald, Michael Crabtree, Jarvis Landry, and DeAndre Hopkins. I only start 2 receivers, so those are my 4 go-tos right out the gate.
Love it. And I love your tight ends. I mean, you got 2 tight ends right there that are just going to be, ball hogs, I believe.
Yeah, I'm a big Jordan Reed fan. I got Gary Barnidge, Cameron Brate, Jordan Cameron, Tyler Higbee, Jordan Reed, and Seth DeValve. Of course, I had to grab another Cleveland Brown there. But, yeah, I mean, Jordan Reed, I took Jordan Reed pretty high in that draft just because I'm a firm believer in you got to have that really good tight end. And with him signing that contract extension, Tyler Eifert is hurt again. I think we talked about this on last week's podcast or the week before. And with Jordan Reed just signing that contract extension, actually being a better receiver, I had to get one of those top tight ends. I had to get it. So I think I took Jordan Reed right in the 3rd or 4th round. And I still feel good about it because my team turned out pretty well around him.
Absolutely. And I think Barnidge also has a really good chance of finishing the top 5 tight ends this year, along with Reed. So and Brate could turn out to be, with all the news you're hearing about ASJ, although I'm not ready to sell ASJ quite yet. But, Brate might turn into somebody that can really – there's always during the year, there's always those tight ends that you just never think about that you pick up and they end up winning your league. And I think Brate could definitely be one of those guys.
Yeah, he's just one of those guys. I mean, 3 months ago, I would have never even considered taking Cameron Brate. Never. Yeah. But then all of a sudden, like a month ago, you start hearing Cameron Brate's name come up about a sneaky possible starter at tight end in Tampa Bay. And, my first initial reaction is, who the hell is Cameron Brate? And then I'm like, that's impossible. They have Austin Seferian-Jenkins. They just took him in the 2nd round. He showed promise. And then here we are, again, a month later now, where you're hearing all these rumblings about Austin Seferian-Jenkins putting out these cryptic tweets like, oh, like I'm out of here and stuff like that. And the coaching staff's down on Austin Seferian-Jenkins. So
I think he might have some mental issues, that ASJ.
It may be. There's smoke in Tampa Bay. There's smoke.
There's smoke going on in Tampa Bay for sure. And
So
I think he's smoking it.
It could be. I mean, him and Josh Gordon could be kicking it pretty well. So I know, like, it's just one of those things. Like, I like Austin Seferian-Jenkins. He was a second-round pick in your rookie drafts, most likely as well, and could be probably a high one. I know in our Dynasty Nerds league, he went like right middle, the high of the second round of the rookie draft that year in a deep draft. But right now, I mean, everybody's talking about Cameron Brate, and everybody's talking bad about Austin Seferian-Jenkins. And right now, it's kind of hard to say you can't sell him. His value's down too much.
Yeah.
And he hasn't done anything to make you say, oh, that he is the future there.
You're right. He's having trouble staying healthy. I tell you what, Brate, Brate caught a really high percentage of his red zone targets last year. Obviously, Winston trusts him. If ASJ can't stay on the field, or if he doesn't even make the field at all, Brate could be a real sneaky player for your dynasty team.
Yeah, you got to check your waiver wires and see if Cameron Brate's out there. That's a must grab at this point. Again, you're talking about somebody that can be had for nothing. Cameron Brate could be had for nothing. There's a good chance, if your guys aren't too savvy in your league or on this the latest news of what's going on in Tampa Bay, the tight end position, that you can get Cameron Brate off your waiver wire. And he's a must-add, because right now, if you told me, hey, you have $100 right now, you got to put on Austin Seferian-Jenkins or Cameron Brate being the starter. If you ask me today, as crazy as it sounds, I'm putting on Cameron Brate. Too much bad stuff coming out for the last couple months for me on Austin Seferian-Jenkins.
He's following the smoke, folks. He's following the smoke.
So, all right, well, that's a podcast for you.
Man, what a good time. Hey, Rich, thanks for having me on, and I really appreciate it. It's been fun talking Dynasty with you.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for being the first ever guest host on the Dynasty Nerds podcast. Matt likes to vacation a lot, so who knows when we'll get you back on. But you're always welcome back on. You can even come back on when Matt's on. He won't crowd the mic too much.
Nice.
We appreciate having you on. We appreciate the articles you and all the writers write. Make sure to check out Wynn's new article on the Cleveland Browns. It's long, it's detailed, but it will definitely give you some really good information on the Cleveland Browns football team.
Absolutely.
Did you like the Browns a little bit more after writing that article?
Man, when I started getting to that, I'm kind of a Browns fan now, man. I'm really looking forward to watching them turn the corner. The more research I did, the more I'm excited about Hugh and excited about Pep and
Super Bowl.
I love this youth that they just brought in. I mean, drafting this many wide receivers this early in this draft, it's definitely telling us something. So definitely get out there and read this article, and you can pick up a lot of these guys real late and just kind of sit on them, just like Rich did in his draft.
Yeah, that's what I like to do. Just imagine them next year when they get like Leonard Fournette or Nick Chubb's on their team. They're going to be better. It's going to be great. So, again, you can read that and all the great articles we put out every single day on dynastynerds.com. So make sure you check that out. We have free ADP, rookie ADP, all the rankings that you need. We have everything you need to win your Dynasty League. Articles, rankings, and, of course, if you want to support the website, we have the best, most comfortable T-shirts in the world. You can buy Dynasty Nerds T-shirt on the website as well. If you'd ever be so kind to get on iTunes and give us a rating and review, let us know what you think of the show. Helps the show tremendously when you do things like that. You got anything you want to plug, Wynn? You selling anything?
No, I mean, just get out there and go on the Dynasty Nerds website, read all the great articles from all the guys that contribute there. I've got some new stuff coming up. I've got one coming up this week, and you can follow me at Wind Tunnel. It's WINNTUNNEL. And y'all, good luck this year with all your Dynasty teams, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, make sure you follow Wynn on Twitter. He's a great Twitter follow. And if you have any questions, make sure you hit him up on Twitter at Wind Tunnel. You can follow me at Dynasty Rich. We'll be back next week with Matt back in studio, and we'll for sure have Wynn on again soon. I think he told me earlier today he was interested in possibly doing some rankings. So maybe you'll be able to see those in the future as well. But until then, enjoy that sunshine. I know I will. All right,
Adios.
guys. Thanks.
Thanks.